Another edition of Beat the Closing Number presented by TheLines.com and Bet365 Sportsbook. I'm Eli Hershkovich, joined by Justin Perri at Justin Perri 8 on X, college basketball betting analyst for shot quality bets. We have odds, we have lines for the matchups here on Saturday, December 28th. We had a little bit of a two-day lull in the college basketball season, but the last Saturday non-conference slate, Justin, until the NCAA tournament.
Well, let's go. I'm first of all, obviously super excited to be back on the show, Eli. Thank you so much for having me. The two-day lull is sometimes appreciated. I get to catch my breath a little bit, catch up on a few things that I'm behind on, but it's right back to work. I am really excited about some of these games. We have a good one at the top that I know we will be spending some time on. But yeah, last non-con group of games until we see teams getting back together after conference tournaments, which sounds crazy that we're already here, but I do think this is a interesting part of the schedule where it can be definitely a little bit difficult, right? Because the end of that non-con, maybe the look-ahead effect into the conference schedule, how do these games right before this, New Year's break really take place? I'm a little skeptical. I definitely tread lightly around the holidays myself, Eli.
No, I'm with you. I did not participate in betting on the Diamond Head Classic. That's for sure. Any bets for you?
Nope. No, literally, I don't think I had anything on the 25th. Maybe one bet, lost on Loyola Chicago the first night and kind of bowed out.
All right, fair enough. I respect it because I had no action, so at least you had some. How was the Christmas?
Oh, I mean, I come from a long line of Italians on that side, so sausage, meatballs, more lasagna than Garfield could handle, and a few coma-level naps to sleep it all off. But that's what it's all about, time with family and friends, neighbors as well. We sort of do a little bit of a nice hodgepodge type mix with my family, and it's great. So got to see my parents, my sister, some of my old friends, and it's nice. It's just nice to sort of take a break and take some solace, and got to honestly talk some college hoops as well. And everyone was buzzing about Victor Wembanyama, so that was kind of cool with the Knicks game kind of taking some center stage in our New York household.
Yeah, I had Chinese. We had Chinese ordered in at the catch.
There you go. Hey, I love that too, man. It was Merry Christmasa to everybody out there. It's a fun time when both line up on the same day. My mother's side is very Jewish, so I kind of celebrate both, and obviously have a lot of heritage on both sides. So it's really cool to. Yeah, I'm a real New Yorker, So it's great. It's great.
Sounds like it. All right, let's get into the entree on the Saturday slate. The Bet365 game of the week, number 14, Gonzaga in terms of the AP Top 25 ranking, 9-3 Zags. Taking on number 22 UCLA, 10-2 at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood, California. So a bit of a neutral site game. I'm sure you'll get a good amount of Gonzaga fans going to this one. So the Zags not coming off necessarily in terms of their last recent games, but two overtime losses in the non-conference schedule. One to West Virginia, one to Kentucky in Seattle, and then another loss by a couple possessions at the Garden, a game that you didn't go to because of the ticket cost. I understand. I get it. We touched on that on another episode of Beat the Closing Number. So Gonzaga losing to UConn, and they were favored by a couple possessions, losing that game by around 5 or 6 points, I believe, at the Garden. So over the last few weeks, I was digging into some of the numbers adjusted defensive efficiency-wise for Gonzaga, especially when you strip the preseason priors. Just inside or right smack dab, top 100, 100th ranked adjusted defensive efficiency on Torvik. And that's pretty notable just when you look at the opponents they've faced over that span. A Kentucky defense that has regressed, but still an explosive Kentucky offense that runs great sets under Mark Pope. And then UConn, which has really found itself, maybe not so much defensively, but they have really gotten into a flow offensively ever since the Maui Invitational. And some of the defensive numbers, yes, it's not like Gonzaga is traditionally a defensive powerhouse, but losing Anton Watson and ranking second all-time in program history in steals, trailing only John Stockton. He was Mark Few's Swiss Army knife. He could guard 1 through 5. I'm starting to wonder, just before we dig into the matchup itself and the X's and O's and the opening odds too, with Gonzaga opening as a -4.5 favorite at the Intuit Dome at FanDuel Sportsbook. We'll see where this number drifts in a couple days, but I'm worried about this Gonzaga's defense without Watson.
Yeah, I am too, and I think it's a definite, Achilles heel now a little bit. They're missing those extra possessions. In college basketball, I think something that definitely goes a little bit under discussed is just how important the possession battle really is. Especially, you want to talk about shot quality, talk about it all the time, Eli. If we could make the name as blunt as possible, it would be possession quality, right? The more possessions you have, the better of a chance you have to win. And that's the first thing that every team's out there to do. Get the ball in their hands more than the other team. And when you lose a steals guy like that and an assist to turnover type of guy, like what they had last year, like what Mark Few's been able to hang his hat on for the last couple of years, you feel it. And look, I think the defensive numbers in the last couple of weeks have been a little alarming. There has not been much reprieve from the shot quality data, honestly. The Nicholls State game still expected to allow 75. Connecticut expected to allow 85, actually. So a few less points in that game than expected. And even Bucknell getting to 67, that's a little concerning. I think years past, Gonzaga is maybe blowing past a Bucknell team like that by 30, 32, 35, even, rather than, just squeaking by a 21-point win, shot quality 23. Yeah, the offense still looks great, but I'm definitely concerned about what they're allowing their opponents to develop from three-point range, especially. It hasn't really bitten them yet, and I think maybe we're talking a little bit about some of these defensive problems. They could be so much worse. Teams are shooting just 25% against Gonzaga from deep right now. Shot quality expecting 34% on those shots. So an extra 7%, 8% more points scored against Gonzaga on the shot quality data. It's definitely still a good defense for college, but it's definitely, a little bit worrisome for what Gonzaga has put out. A lot of people may be looking at them as a preseason favorite to make that Final Four run. I think what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, you have to probably bring them down a notch or two.
Yeah, we'll get into the Final Four odds just because I think it's an intriguing market at this point of the season before conference play later on in the show. But you brought up national title odds, so if we just take a quick glance over at Bet365, Gonzaga priced at plus 1,400, so 14-1. Fifth shortest odds behind Houston, Tennessee, Duke, and Auburn. I think we're both in agreement that probably overvalued at this point.
Yes.
And I want to dive into the defensive numbers a little bit deeper that you brought up, because not only are opponents shooting 25% from three, and I'm curious if UCLA is the team to take advantage, or maybe this number doesn't really regress negatively a bunch until the tournament because of what they're going to face in the WCC. Granted, could be a 4 or 5 bid league this year if Santa Clara continues to make strides like they have in the latter part of non-conference play. But going back to this matchup, UCLA well below average across Division I in three-point attempt rate. They can play you 5 out. Bilodeau, pretty good floor spacing 5. Got into foul trouble against UNC. That's the other thing here, the situational spot for UCLA. Coming off of the UNC tough loss about a week and a half ago at this point, or less than a week ago, I guess, as we're recording this on Thursday, December 26th. Bilodeau got into foul trouble down the stretch, and they were kind of playing him off on the floor, just offensive possessions only, and it cost them.
Right.
UNC overcoming a 16-point deficit down the stretch in the latter part of the second half. But you look at where UCLA ranks in terms of points per possession, they are pretty efficient with their low post action, especially with Bilodeau. And Gonzaga can be had on the low block, especially when Graham Ike isn't on the floor. So if you can play inside out with him, they're not going to take a ton of threes, but shoot enough threes against the Gonzaga defense that we both are in agreement that they're going to regress at some point, whether it's the UCLA game or not. And then one last thing, I'm curious to see situationally, not just from a spot perspective coming off a loss and having a week to ruminate over it, but Mick Cronin is 0-4 straight up against Mark Few over the last couple seasons, and 2 of those losses coming in the tournament. Brutal losses, both by 1 possession, including the Jalen Suggs half-court buzzer beater to send UCLA packing. They got some mid-range shooting luck, speaking of shot quality, throughout that NCAA tournament run a few years ago. But this game means a lot for Mick Cronin, just speaking motivationally.
I fully agree. And obviously, held in LA, this is going to be a big spot, honestly, for this very defensive team. Talk about the inefficiencies that Gonzaga is dealing with defensively. You have to talk about the probably equal efficiencies that we're seeing with UCLA. The defense has been nothing short of highly impressive. Like, they can shut you down. They currently are the number 1 shot quality defense, and Gonzaga is the number 1 shot quality offense. So you're going to go see a treat, my friend. And this is a big test for what UCLA has been doing, because it's been impressive. They are definitely forcing turnovers at a very high rate, defending the rim exceptionally well, forcing you to take those mid-range shots. They're seeing 19% of their shots against them on defense are mid-range. It's a 45th highest rate in the league in terms of forcing those shots. Seeing a lot of threes as well, but the quality of the looks are very bad. The off-the-dribble three-pointers are the 10th best defended in the nation for UCLA. Rim, 6th best defended. So you're just not getting a lot of opportunities to score, repeatable, effective points against them, like viable up and down the floor. Like, the rim and 3 rate against them looks really good. The shot selection against them looks really good. When you take rim and 3 shots against them, less than 1 point per possession. So that's pretty tough to do from shots at the rim and at 3, which means you're shooting on average less than 33% from 3 and less than 50% at the rim against this team. Only 5 schools in the nation doing better at that. 2 schools in the nation doing better at that. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to probably come down to if Gonzaga can execute in the mid-range. And they've looked good. They are potent there, but they don't want to do it. So this is going to be who can kind of impose that stylistic will. Can Gonzaga get the shots from the rim and 3, and will UCLA effectively force them into the mid-range? Probably going to be a big factor in who walks away victorious.
Yeah, and you brought up the possession battle from the get-go, just from a broader lens, macro lens, with Anton Watson not having him on the roster anymore, obviously graduating last year, and his defensive presence, especially when it came to generating extra possessions off of steals. So UCLA defensively, as you mentioned, not only number 1 in shot quality defense, but 4th rated adjusted defensive efficiency per Haslametrics. The one area that I find, among many, interesting with the potential regression, and they already have an elite defense, as you hit on, we both touched on, but UCLA's opponents have a top 20 field goal percentage in transition, which is clearly what Gonzaga wants to do year over year under Mark Few. They want to play up tempo. Ryan Nembhard, whether it's in the mid-range himself, fairly decent mid-range shooter, or just getting to the rim and spacing the floor off of that. But per shot quality, UCLA allowing the 7th fewest shot quality points per possession. So do we see even more positive regression for a defense that grades out well, even though you look at the non-conference strength of schedule and say, okay, what's there outside of New Mexico? They do have a big road win at Oregon in Eugene. So it really depends, if you believe as a bettor, if UCLA is as good as the market says, or to an extent, if you think they're better than the market says, per the point spread, having them as a 4.5-point underdog as we record this here on a neutral court, that road win spoke volumes to me. And if they get some transition defense regression when it comes to limiting Gonzaga in transition and on fast break opportunities, and if Bilodeau is as effective as advertised against Ike and the rest of Gonzaga's bigs in the low post, and UCLA shoots enough threes, if Dylan Andrews starts to play back to last year's form, I think this point spread is a little bit big. So I'm probably going to wait to see how the market shifts around here over the next couple of days, just because we're recording this 2 days out of the game. But you hit on it. I'm going to this game. I can't wait to see it in person. But lean UCLA for me. I just kind of want to see where the market moves.
Yeah, I think, the only hesitation I have with, I guess, maybe resting my hat on the Oregon win at all is, they shot, 12 of 23 from deep in that game. So, yeah, look, if UCLA can shoot like that any night, I don't know that they lose. They are that team. Oregon played a great game, though, so don't get me wrong. I actually do really like that Oregon team, so I did respect that win a lot. That was a good win, right? Like, you look at that as a team, like, that's manufactured, that's coaching. But, if it's just shooting, I probably take Oregon the next time they go in there regardless. Sure. So, yeah, right. Of course, that's what we do. But look, this UCLA team has been doing what I think you need to do. They've played Arizona and North Carolina since. This is probably the game they've had circled on the calendar all season long. Nebraska, Michigan, Maryland, the entry into Big Ten coming up after this. So it's going to, yeah.
And that Nebraska game, I don't want to. This game isn't a must-win per se for UCLA, but that is a tough spot at Nebraska in Lincoln. A pretty good Nebraska team, as we saw in the Diamond Head Classic. So you could be on the verge of losing 3 straight if you lose this game.
And then you got to go, yeah. Then you got to play Michigan at home, which is no like promise either, right? And then you're on to Maryland and Rutgers. So you could there's a small chance you drop in 4 of 5. This is a big game. This is a really interesting stretch for this UCLA team. It'll get a little bit easier with Iowa coming to town. But I mean, I don't know. I know people are against the Big Ten, but I think these teams being added in makes it fascinating, just from the pure basketball standpoint. Obviously, I understand, what are we doing geographically? But if they were located, off of the Great Lakes, it'd be phenomenal. But nonetheless, from a pure basketball standpoint, I do think it's going to be fun. But this is a big game. I would not be shocked to see UCLA do it. I'm not running to place a bet. Numbers for shot quality definitely lean Gonzaga, but we're so enamored by the offense, and I see how good UCLA's defense is. This is probably when I'm looking to live bet to kind of gain some extra data, see who's really, actually succeeding in that battle in the first 8 to 12 minutes, and expecting that, what we can collect from that first third to be more profitable to bet on than what we're doing right now in the pregame market.
No, that makes sense. I'm likely going to be on UCLA. Just kind of want to see where the market goes. You can find my bet in our Discord channel. Link is over at thelines.com in the top right-hand corner. It's free. You could also find my betting guide at thelines.com. This could go up, to your point. The market has been high on Gonzaga all year round, probably with the exception of the UConn game. Just with UConn closed as a 2.5-point, quote-unquote, home dog at the Garden, and that opened 4.5. So we did see the market come crashing in. This game is probably, what would you say, maybe 60-40 Zags fans? I think Gonzaga fans could outnumber UCLA fans. I don't know how many UCLA fans are going to show up to this game, to be honest.
It's the same problem we have here in New York, right? It's just that, it's the transplant fan and the show out spot for teams who are going to, one of the American metropolises like the Garden. And honestly, let's give a tip of the cap to what the Intuit Dome looks like. You're going to have a great time. That is one of the premier sporting experiences right now in the world. You're going to walk in and there's going to be that halo screen. I mean, you got to think the players are going to feel it and want to show out too. It's LA. And we know LA sports teams don't necessarily do great. I feel like maybe UCLA could be a little bit of an exception. There is a lot of allegiance for UCLA, USC in downtown LA, whichever side you might be on. But the thing is, Spokane travels. That's just the bottom line. Like, that is such a big basketball school, not a bad drive at all down the coast. yeah, I expect it to be maybe a little bit more Gonzaga, and that stuff matters. That stuff really does matter. I was at the Jimmy V, and Nebraska showed out against Michigan, and that did not make that made an impact on Gonzaga coming back and winning that. Oh, sorry, on Arkansas coming back and winning that game with their whole crowd chanting "Woo Pig." So crowd matters. The crowd matters. Home court is a real impact in the sport. So you got these neutrals, and it's an all Gonzaga crowd. I don't hate a half point shade.
Right. Well, we'll see where the market moves. I was surprised that it opened soft opener, but that it opened Gonzaga -4.5. I thought it could open around 3. So probably going to be good two-way traffic on this game, and maybe it won't move that much. Maybe it'll go down to 4, 3.5. Either way, I'll probably have a play on UCLA. But just to the point that this is a big game for the Bruins, also a monster game for Gonzaga. They don't have any marquee wins outside of the Baylor season opener, winning that one by 20 plus, almost, I think, around 30 points. So this is a huge game for Gonzaga's resume because on a bunch of different bracketology sites, you're looking at Gonzaga as a 4 seed, which definitely isn't the norm, like we do see when they're not hosting, but when they're a number 1 seed in LA for a Sweet 16. They're a ways off from that, from getting a higher seed in the tournament, and we'll see how UCLA finishes out the year. But a win for the Zags could be big for their NCAA tournament seeding. So if you're looking to bet Gonzaga or UCLA, remember to use the early payout offer at Bet365 Sportsbook. And with that early payout offer, you're a winner if your team goes up by 20 or more points at any point in the game, with the instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. Download the app and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Remember to use promo code the lines one word, when you sign up to get $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet at Bet365 Sportsbook. On to the second matchup we're going to discuss here, Justin, on Saturday. Earlier tip, number 16 Ole Miss, 11-1 Rebels at the Memphis Tigers. Memphis sitting at 9-3. Memphis has had a week to ruminate and then some after losing to Mississippi State last Saturday in blowout fashion on CBS. Spot definitely favors Memphis here, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's an understatement. You're seeing maybe a little early doubt in that spot, right? I mean, Ken Palm number's sitting at 2. We're only getting the 1. So I'm not super sold on how much the market loves this spot per se, but yeah, that's not exactly what you want to see. The home loss, they're second in their last 2 games at home. So yeah, they have not won at home. They beat Louisiana Tech. Good job, guys. Only by 10 as well. Couldn't cover that. So they've been somehow able to go on the road and surprise people, and this has got to change. You have to defend home court. You're not going to get respect from the committee. This is, about as must win in late December as it gets for me. This Memphis team has been, I think, a little disappointing. And going into, play in conference, I do think this is a game they're going to have circled. FAU, sure, on the day after New Year's Day is a big one as well. But that's on the road. I think that, they're probably a little bit better than that FAU team, but this Mississippi team is going to give them a little bit more of the fits, right? We have Memphis rated right now in the top 30 of shot quality, and Mississippi's sort of sitting there right at 40. FAU is going to be at 70. So yeah, this is the game for them. I mean, I was seeing prices for Memphis at like -145, -155 to win the conference when they were preseason +150. So the market's pretty confident about how they're going to do in the American, but this game for them is a major bounce back spot. They're going to need to get some of those problems that they're having in terms of just like the rebounding hasn't been great, and the defense at the rim also has not been good. They do keep opponents away from the rim, which is going to be good, but Mississippi is going to turn you over, protect the ball, pass well, and shoot well. So, I mean, I think Memphis is going to have to hit their threes to win this game, and I don't know that they can. So I'm pretty concerned, but I do lean towards them.
I'm glad you brought that up. So ahead of, in terms of Memphis's 3-point shooting, ahead of the win, tight win, 2-point win, didn't cover. Thankfully, I had Virginia in that game. Memphis shot 21.7% from behind the arc in that one. And in the loss to Mississippi State at home, 29.6%. They were shooting, going into the Virginia game, over 55% on unguarded threes. So this is a team that was due to regress. Does the market think it's going to continue? Maybe, but Ole Miss can be vulnerable with their ball screen coverage. And you look at dribble handoffs for Memphis, that's probably the one area when I was diving into the numbers where Memphis's guards could take advantage, even though PJ Haggerty is a little bit turnover prone, and that's where Chris Beard's defense is no different this year, typically thrive, turning you over. Even though the defense isn't top 20, top 30, where it normally is, preseason priors had Ole Miss as a top 90 defense. Yeah. They're right now borderline top 50, but they do struggle a little bit when it comes to dribble handoffs, and they rank in the 19th percentile on points per possession allowed on dribble handoff action. Is that something where Haggerty and Hunter can get right from three over a 2-game stretch, or does the negative regression continue? So I hear you with the market shaving this one down from Memphis -1.5, -105 to -1. Maybe it closes pick, but I would have a hard time. I'm probably not going to bet the game. I would just have a hard time betting Ole Miss because you look at their schedule, tight loss to Purdue. They have a good overtime win against BYU on a neutral, and then a road win against a banged up Louisville team. When they closed as 3.5-point dogs, market was off there. But even though I have a long shot future on Ole Miss, preseason-wise, that was preseason just because I wondered how the Beard-Adams defense, if it would transition in Beard's second season. And it has. They've improved at that end of the floor. I just don't think this is a good spot.
No, it isn't. And I mean, again, the only reason why I don't have like a heart next to the play for Memphis is the defense. I'm just so concerned about like the looks they're allowing at the rim. And I know like 33% attempt rate at the rim is 321st. So shout out to the Tigers. They've done a really good job at forcing opponents to take, other shots. It's been a lot of off the dribble threes though. I think 26th most seen off the dribble threes right now. And Ole Miss can hit those shots, Eli, right? Like they're sitting at a 1.1 SQ rate right now, and they clearly do well shooting. They've just been a good shooting team this year. I don't know. I don't really trust those closeouts from Memphis. I think they're allowing just far too many open looks. The open three rate is just not good, and I think Mississippi is well set up to capitalize on it. The only, I think, remedy that Memphis really has is that they would need to have Ole Miss not get any penetration. They have to totally kill, penetration off the dribble so that there isn't any, proper spacing. But I don't trust that. Memphis defense sitting there in the 94th percentile, which is not good in this sense, right? In terms of scoring against, 346th best spacing against, and yeah, spacing wins games. We know that. We know that opening up the floor, creating wins off of closeouts, and effectively using, screen movement to open up good attempts at the rim and kickouts to the three. Like that's what Ole Miss has been able to do in a very balanced way. And I would expect their shooters to have a lot of space. It's just going to be, can they hit them? And maybe does Memphis get the home boost? But numbers lean towards that Memphis side. I'm a bit hesitant personally, but I don't bet with anything but numbers. So take that as you will.
Other thing too with Ole Miss, well, a couple things. They might be due for a little bit more positive 3-point regression than you would expect. On unguarded threes, they're shooting below Division I average, just under 33%. And like you said, this is a top 70 3-point efficiency team overall, with Sean Padula transferring in from Va Tech. They have Jalen Murray, who came over from St. Peter's a couple of years ago. They play you 5 out.
I like him. Yep.
Yeah, he's a really explosive guard. Not really your typical Beard defender, but on some of those Texas Tech teams, especially the one that made the title game, like Matthew Mooney wasn't an elite defensive guard. Neither was Moretti. So maybe he fits the mold. He's just a little bit undersized. But he is really good at creating turnovers, especially when it comes to forcing steals. The other thing, too, with Ole Miss that I wanted to bring up, maybe it's not something that Memphis is going to be able to take advantage of on paper, but this is a pretty small Ole Miss team. And Dane Danger, top 90, actually the spot-on 90th highest offensive rebounding rate in college basketball. On paper, and when you watch him, Moussa Cisse also top 20, so even better than Danger. Both of those guys, assuming they could stay out of foul trouble, pretty reliable second-chance shot creators on offensive rebounds. That could be a big issue for Ole Miss.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably where, if you're sitting there as Penny Hardaway, you're that's what you're harping on. It's like, go get those extra possessions. That's what we're going to need here. If they play just, the possessions straight up, this is going to come down to the last possession. If that's just what it's going to be. Like, these teams are not separated by that much. Memphis has looked great and been a little lucky, and the free throw rate for the Tigers is what's going to really, keep them in this, as they probably take some bad shots. They have a bad rim and three rate, but they do well on those looks. So all I really want from this Memphis team is for them to stop shooting in the mid range. If they can really stop doing that, maybe just a couple percent points down from 17% offensively to 15, 16, that makes a difference. Justin, you're talking about 1% of plays. Yes, I am. I think that it matters. It really does. So I don't like how they've shot in those possessions. I know they've made a bunch of them, but the problem is that you can't keep relying on middies, unless it's one of your last options, right? And so I don't like seeing that percentage so high, because it means they're going to their last option a lot. They're not taking the shots they want. Mississippi might be able to continue to disrupt it. I've seen, a little bit of the worry for me, for if I'm trying to bet Ole Miss and trying to get to that rationale, is that they do foul a lot, right? And they do allow pretty good spacing defensively. This is definitely going to be another one where I think your best bet is seeing how it starts, seeing if you can, maybe see the under the hood mechanics starting to play out, and ideally the results don't necessarily follow. Like, some bad shots go in, some good shots miss, but you can see which side's actually getting that game plan to execute. That's my favorite thing at this point. That's how I do it. So yeah, look for the live opportunity and just try to see how those closeouts from Memphis are going. If they're getting in their face and that hands up, you can maybe trust them. But if it looks a little rough and the spacing looks like they have an extra 5 feet from them, I think Ole Miss takes it.
I'm with you there. Let's shift over to an actual conference game. We do have some Mountain West action, Mountain West play this weekend. Utah State 11-1 at San Diego State, 8-2 Aztecs. Explain this to me, because I saw it. I saw the background info, but to our lovely listeners and viewers, San Diego State has outperformed its record by a ton. Shot quality has its record at 4-6. Talk to me, Justin.
Oh, yeah. This is a crazy one. I mean, everyone loves the San Diego State team. I think this is probably one of our biggest edges in the market over at shot quality. I'm not sure what it is. Is it the long-standing reputation? Is it just that they're 7-2 again this season? I don't know, but they have one of the highest luck ratings right now across the site, sitting as a borderline top 100 team. The defense right now, Eli, outside of the top 120 on shot quality. This is a team that was perennially a top 10, 15 unit defensively for shot quality, would suffocate you, both in terms of what you saw on the floor and in the data, but no longer. Really, really lucky string. Getting that win against UC San Diego, I think, gives this team a big breath of confidence in the efficiency models because of how well UC San Diego has gone and done since that game. But that was the first game of the season at home for San Diego State against a rival in-state, in-city that, they've been the big brother over. But UC San Diego played that game to a shot quality win by 8 points. So now Imagine if they start off the season that way, okay? So, right. Then they go and they lose to Gonzaga. That's fine at home. But a home win against Creighton was expected to be a loss. Going to Oregon was a 10-point loss, expected to be a 20-point loss. They should have had no chance. Houston game, they won. So another huge win, expected to be a tight loss. Still, not honestly, that little switch doesn't do much because it's 2-3 points either direction. That's honestly a big, staying within 3 points of Houston on a neutral floor is probably their best result in the entire season, even though they beat San Diego by, almost 20 points. Shot quality saw 7. And then Cal Baptist, a 6-point win. SQ saw like a 1-point win. So these things just add up. So they are still expected to be pretty good, top 100 team. But the concern is really just in a lot of the defensive metrics. I mean, we're talking about a team that is seeing below 30% from both 3-point range and mid-range and post-up. All those numbers expected to be a lot higher. And I think there's just maybe a faster acceptance with this tenured defensive program to maybe accept some of those field goal shooting numbers. Shot quality is kind of sounding the alarm. This is, this is a play I love. I'm all over Utah State taking those points. Honestly, will stake my claim and expect this to not be 4.5 by the time it closes. I think it closes 3.5.
I'm with you. I don't think this line, I think it's around a possession. I just worry about the home spot. I mean, all the numbers you said are totally fair. Templin can exploit San Diego State's pack line defense too, top 45 offensive rebounding rate. We'll see how that plays to a relatively physical San Diego State team, maybe not as much to as years past under Brian Dutcher, but still not great at the defensive end, but fairly solid when it comes to offensive rebounding, or, well, just above the Division I average, I should say. Yeah. And then comparatively speaking to Gonzaga, UCLA, San Diego State has a very elite transition defense when you look at the overall numbers and then per shot quality.
That's Utah State crazy, and it's so good at defending the transition. It's the only thing, maybe besides like the 3-point defense, that has really remained.
Right. Utah State ranks in the 84th percentile of points per possession in transition, and that's without shot quality. So do we see this San Diego State defense take Utah State out of what it wants to do offensively? And if it has to operate more so in the half court, they generate some turnovers and they cover this point spread. That would be my only concern. Nick Boyd has been really hot, the FAU transfer for the Aztecs, 5 of 8 from deep against Cal last weekend. I'm a little concerned about what if Utah State isn't able to run and gun offensively.
I still think they win by 3. if they can't run and gun. I mean, if they can, they're gonna just decimate them. I don't think they will, right? We're talking about a San Diego State team that is not only defending the transition at the best rate in the country in terms of allowing points, but also only 8% of possessions against them. So that's pretty good. And again, you're going to see this team in Utah State like push hard. They're running 13% of their possessions out of transition right now. But honestly, the half-court offense is still pretty good. I do think that this would be a spot, even if they're not getting those fast break looks, even if, the turnover rate, which for the, what they're forcing on defense right now, 22% turnover rate for the Aggies is 21st best in the nation. You do have a spot here for San Diego State where I think ball security has to be what, you're going to see yelled about at the sideline, right? And they've done a good job. Only 16% on offense in terms of turning the ball over. They've been really strong out of timeouts. Their ATO rates on offense have been really good. So I think that's a strong sign in terms of, San Diego State maybe being able to salvage big possessions in big spots to maybe quell runs or even close the game out. The coaching has always been a big boon to this Aztecs team, but I'm just so concerned about like how often I'm seeing them run ball screens and how inefficient they are off of them, sitting at the 11th most out of PNR, but 216th best. Same thing. Way too many ISO looks for the San Diego State offense. And I just don't think you can give that gift to Utah State. It's going to create an uphill battle, and you're giving me 4.5 points. This is my favorite play of Saturday by far.
I get it. I have the number closer to 3 as well. I'm just a little bit concerned about the home spot. And then what
Come
if
on.
you
I
take
love it. I love Utah State. I was talking about that game when they played UC San Diego. That it was the mid-major Super Bowl in December. I think this is one of these teams that, still a little slept on, looked good in past years. This could be that Cinderella team out of Utah State. I don't know. I'm really enamored. You don't get to a top 20 adjusted shot quality without doing a couple of the right things. I'm not saying they're going to cut down nets, but they're not even shooting to their best ability just yet.
interesting too. A very similar style of play to an extent, at least when you look at what has been traditionally a really good St. Mary's defense. Utah State went to St. Mary's and won in their last matchup. Still have Ian Martinez. This is a relatively experienced Utah State team, even though they've had a coaching change and you have your best player from last year now in Washington in Grant Osibor. Still pieces there, and like I mentioned, intriguing piece off the bench in Templin that has been great at generating second chance opportunities in limited minutes and can also space the floor against the San Diego State defense that allows its fair share of open threes. But I hear you. I get the play, absolutely. So looking at the Bet365 dessert table here, Justin, what are some extra plays you got sprinkled in for the listeners and viewers?
Ooh, okay. A couple there. There's a few more games. You're starting to talk my language a little bit, a little down low. You want to talk Marshall Elon? I think that's a fun one. Look, Marshall is currently sitting a little bit lower in our rankings than maybe at Ken Palm, like 220. But Elon, for some reason, continues to just be massively, massively overperforming. Like big shout out to what this team has been able to do this season. Somehow sitting at 6-4 while forcing like the fifth fewest turnovers in Division One and rating 359th in adjusted defensive shot quality. I'm not sure how they're doing it, but unexpected to beat Wofford, expected to only win that game in 13% of simulations, unexpected to beat Penn. That's both in this month already. So two major wins. They beat Notre Dame, Eli. They were expected to lose that game by 7 on the road. I don't know what is getting into this team coming off of a win at home versus UNC Greensboro, but this Marshall Thundering Herd team, I think, is going to come in and make a little bit of noise. This is a spot where I think Marshall is just a more tenured program, and you might be handing me, a line sitting here at like 4. I don't think it's dropped yet. I don't know if I've seen lines, but if I can get a very nice price here of a +4, I'm not really sure that you're seeing a game that is anything less than a win at all costs for Elon. I do think they could walk away with the game victorious. But yeah, I like what Marshall's been able to do this season. Really good free throw rate. And let me tell you, that matters a lot in games like this. Do not let teams attempt open threes. 20th best open three rate and 16th best rim and three rate on defense while limiting spacing. I think this is exactly the type of team that could come in and show you every single weakness that Elon has that has somehow not been put on blast. I'm not sure how they've done it. I really don't know how they've done it. But this is one where I have already been losing money, right? So when I'm sitting here saying I don't know how it's been happening, it's because it keeps going against me. This Elon team continues to get lucky, continues to hurt me, but I'm not the type of person who ever really backs down from that. They're just going to continue to turn the ball over. They do not rebound well. It's just, man, what really is they don't foul on defense somehow. So we'll see how it goes if they continue to hit these threes, but they're not good under the hood. So that's my extra lean of the day.
I like it. I'll tail you on it. You don't believe in any sort of no bet list, that's for sure, and I respect it, man. I will say that there's on this year I have adopted the do not bet a top 20 team against a bottom 20 team game. That's the only thing I don't touch. So, but I'll leave you at that distinction. I respect it. I respect the strategy. Let's shift over. I want to wrap up the show with this. Looking at Final Four odds at Bet365 Sportsbook, just because we're getting close. Next week, we're going to have full-fledged conference play. So, worth looking into some Final Four action. Justin, I know a team that shot quality doesn't like But I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago on the show, before they upset Purdue, mind you, was Texas A&M. They were sitting at around 20-1 at Bet365. Now 15-1. I still really like that price. We saw against Purdue, they got some positive shooting regression, especially from Zurich Phelps and Wade Taylor, the fourth for that matter. But some key areas why I think this team is built for a Final Four run, either from the SEC, which is the best conference of college basketball, dominating non-conference play, but number one in offensive rebounding rate. So you're going to generate second chance opportunities, similar to some teams we've already touched on here on the show. Number four, minutes continuity. Number 9, in Division I experience. Number 9, in adjusted defensive efficiency. Number 58 in bench minutes, which are important when you're looking to make an NCAA tournament run, especially playing 2 games in 3 days. And number 61 in opponent's turnover rate. So also more X possessions off of turnovers. The experience is there in the backcourt with Wade Taylor and Zurich Phelps. So if anybody hasn't gotten down on A&M to make the Final Four, I love the number still being priced around teams that I think the Aggies are still really valuable in this market. Buzz Williams has never, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's ever made a Final Four. An experienced coach like that, I think this is the team for him to make it. One of my favorite futures out there, if not my favorite one, currently standing at that price at least, even though I got him at 20-1 or still 15-1, still a good bet. Yeah, Buzz Williams has never made the Final Four.
Marquette Elite Eight was his best in 2013, his best result. Wow.
Right. Anything for you that sticks out?
I like this team a lot. I mean, and again, it's tough because shot quality, it's not rebound quality. And you know, it's A&M dominates the boards. It is not exactly something that I think what we do over at SQ really lends itself to evaluating at like the same level as maybe a team that dominates with shot selection. All their numbers, you go to shot quality bets, you look at their team page, they look bad. Like, what do you mean you're talking about a team that is 268th in half-court offense and, 256th in half-court defense? Well, here's why that is okay, because they're going to just get 15 more possessions than you every single game. So they don't have to be more efficient on a possession-to-possession basis. They just get 1.2 times more than you every single time out. So, yeah, everything kind of looks bad when you look at just a one possession, but that's not the way this team is built. And shot quality does understand that. Like, don't get us wrong. We do know, how important the turnover rates are and rebounding and who's getting the possessions and the tempo rates. Like, those are all very well factored in. But you can definitely, I think, if you stop and pause and just look at the team stats, can maybe be a little bit misled. This team is not a great shot-making team. I wouldn't say they have shooters. They rely on shot selection. They're 42nd best in the nation at getting good looks. So they're not necessarily going out and hitting all their threes, right? Their expected shooting percentage from deep is 29%, but it does not matter. They will just continue to take those off the dribble threes. They're shooting 17% of their looks from off the dribble, 18% from catch and shoot. So it's just about volume. And I do think that's something you can hang your hat on more so than, this team is going to get hot and beat everybody off the dribble. No, this team cuts to the basket really well. They have athletes. They're going to out-rebound you. They're going to win the possession battle. Yeah, exactly. And that's a blueprint that does work. We've seen it be successful and lead to even maybe some upsets, right? So I do think that this is a very valuable profile. So and which, Justin, how could you no, this is a profile that has done well, right? Like, we've seen I would expect, we'll look at like what Bart Torvik does with his profile stuff. San Diego State in 2024, Sweet 16. Tennessee 2021, sure, first round. But A&M looked like this in 2016, made the Sweet 16. We saw San Diego State look like this in 2023 and made the finals. We saw Texas Tech look like this in 2018 and made the Elite Eight.
Syracuse, 2013, made the Final Four.
Look, the thing I think you can hang your hat on and why there's some value here is there's a really good chance this team is getting into the second weekend. And just on that alone, you're probably getting value on this prop. So if you like
That's the thing, and
To make
already
the Sweet
you're looking at a
16.
borderline
That's a
three
bet,
seed
I think, on
resume,
Texas Tech. Again, and
which
that's
at
part of your
15-1
price.
is fairly valuable. One
Right.
last
That's
point that I wanted
part
to
of your price, though. So I like it. I like it. I'm with you.
right. One last thing I wanted to bring up in terms of luck rankings over at shot quality. Oh, the Oklahoma Sooners, because listeners and viewers may be saying, well, Oklahoma's 25-1 to make the Final Four, and they're undefeated. That team is one of the biggest luck boxes in recent memory for me in non-conference play. Undefeated, they get a miracle 3-point play against Michigan a week and a half ago, depending on when you're listening and watching this. They have a stud freshman in Jeremiah Fears, doesn't play like a freshman, had that 4-point play against Michigan. But you look at the 3-point shooting splits overall I just wanted to pull them up here, they're shooting just over 37% from three. Their opponents are shooting just over 27%. That is a 10-point 3-point shooting split.
See it every year. This 10-point differential team, they are not going to look like this come, February 15th. It just won't. It will not keep up. They might continue to shoot 37%. They have shooters, but there's no way teams are shooting under 30% in SEC play. It's just not happening. Expected to lose to Michigan, expected to lose to Louisville as well. So shot quality record 9-3. A little bit more concerning. I definitely think I like that Texas Tech team to make it into the second weekend more than I like the Oklahoma team. And people are gonna be like, "What do you mean? How are you saying a 12-0 team is worse than what you had in A&M?" They are 50th in efficiency rankings still. Like the similar profiles here, they barely get one win. I don't know that they will get a win in March. I would actually bet that they don't. Right now, more so than I think they do, especially for the price. Like the likelihood is they maybe get one, but for the price you're going to get on Oklahoma right now, this is a team you want to fade. I mean, the only team that's ever looked like this and made a run is literally VCU. Like you're just going to have to stay piss hot. It's not going to happen.
Right, and there are some odds available depending on the book to make the tournament. Oklahoma's minus 480. They have some quality non-conference wins. If you compare them to Ole Miss last year, the 3-point shooting splits in non-conference play are very similar. Now, I say that with a caveat. Ole Miss didn't play anybody last year in non-conference. The win over Michigan is going to pay dividends down the road for Oklahoma, no doubt. A&M plays Oklahoma pretty early on in non-conference, or in conference play, I should say, on January 8th. Could be a good home spot for Oklahoma. Right. But the losses are going to mount. They go at Georgia, an underrated Georgia team to me in the market, on a loaded Saturday slate on January 11th. So that could be a good spot. Ken Pom projects that one at Georgia minus 3.
They might only get 4
SEC
maybe baked
wins,
in, Eli.
Where you're not getting a ton of value. Could close minus 5
for all real shot.
Right. And then you look ahead here. The schedule is going to get tougher and tougher for Oklahoma, especially on the middle part of conference play into the back end. You go on the road to Ole Miss, for instance. You play Mississippi State at home. You go on the road to Florida. I don't think this Oklahoma team is very good, and neither does shot quality.
No, this is a fade, and all the sharpest people agree. Again, look, at Arkansas, at A&M, sure, a little respite home against Vanderbilt, but then Auburn, Tennessee, Missouri on the road. Maybe you'll beat Mizzou. LSU at home, okay, nice. Florida, Mississippi State, Kentucky, like Ole Miss. It's a gauntlet. It's a gauntlet, and they are getting way too hot. I like Jeremiah Fears. I like Duke Miles. I like Jalen Moore. I don't think that they're going to be able to keep this up against teams that aren't Lindenwood, Northwestern State, Stetson, Texas A&M Commerce. Come on, like Alcorn, Central Arkansas. It's just, let's remember that their strength of schedule looks like terrible right now. So let's keep it 100. Their ratings are okay, but they're getting a little lucky. at the other end too. And we saw, the fun metric from Torvik pop up this year. They're a little lucky. They're the third luckiest team in the nation right now. 4-0 in close games. It's just not going to persist. I'll hang my hat on that one.
So that takes us off our soapbox here, handicapping Oklahoma Sooners long-term projections and the rest of our Saturday card, presented by Bet365 Sportsbook and thelines.com. Always appreciate you hopping on, Justin.
Eli, always a pleasure to be here. Excited to hopefully have a great conference season and talk to you soon.
Remember, you could sign up with Bet365 Sportsbook. Use promo code THELINES, one word. You get up to or exactly $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. And that college basketball early payout offer is good through the weekend. If your team goes up by 20 or more points, win or loss at the end of the day, you get the payout instantly for your bet slip, whether it's a parlay, piece of a parlay, whatever it may be. So for Justin and for myself, Eli Hershkovich, thanks for watching and listening to this edition of Beat the Closing Number. So long, everybody, and good luck with your college basketball bets.